Welcome again to the Matilda in Conversation series of videos where I have the honour of interviewing my co-authors and various other interesting individuals. And today we have a very, very special conversation partner. It's none other than the lead author himself, Peter Van Noorden. How you going, mate?
I'm very well, Ben. Yourself?
Yes, I'm doing very well at home. I've been locked down for, March, like coming up to about 5 months now. I can't complain though.
No, well, it's all right down here at Barwon Heads by the sea. It's very nice, and we can still get out and about for the time being.
It's a lovely part of the world. We go down there for the last 3 years. We've had a extended family holiday and a big share and a big Airbnb. Love the place. Love it.
It is beautiful.
Yeah,
indeed.
So you're a bit of a heavyweight in the publishing industry. You've been heavily involved for 30 years, I think you're saying. So do you reckon you can quickly walk us through all of the various things that you've been involved with over the years?
Yeah, I'll be playing a little bit. I started as a teacher of geography and history, and in about my third year of teaching, I wrote my first text, Living Geography, a lovely about 112 pages worth there. And probably every year I taught, I wrote another one. I think I wrote about 6 textbooks when I was teaching. Then joined the publishing industry with Heinemann, who are now part of Pearson. Where I joined as a publisher, which is a great job because you get to work with all the very best teachers. I was working in mathematics and science and history and geography, doing atlases and dictionaries and all sorts of things. So that was a lot of fun.
I can't believe that you were writing textbooks after only having been teaching for 3 years.
Well, hopefully I've improved a little bit since then. It was full of enthusiasm and maybe not as much knowledge as I might have accumulated now, but it was a lot of fun. Well, being a young and enthusiastic teacher, that there's a lot to do, and you've got a lot of ideas you'd like to get out there.
Yeah, definitely. So you've been involved in quite a few projects over the years. I'm wondering what you like, as you've had so much experience, what made you get involved in this project specifically?
Well, I'd finished. I gradually moved through to in the publishing field into management. So I was when I finished my last gig there at Oxford in 2018. I thought, right, I really want to get back to what I was first doing, which is really trying to prepare engaging education materials. So that's where it started, and I had this real fascination with educational magazines. I don't know if you're aware of some of these. I'll see if some of these can come up. This one, all about history. Have a look at that. You've got Viking, Raiders, etc. Really high interest things, magazines to and how it works. Love all of these. So they're super high interest magazines with an educational bent. And I'm thinking, well, if the magazines can do it like that, stick it in news agents or online to really engage and get people to say, hey, I'm really interested in that, I want to read that. Why can't we bring a little bit of that into textbook writing? So that's where the idea started. So I pitched an idea to some publishers, or to a publisher, to say, why don't we try and explore this space?
Yeah, and that leads on to the next thing I wanted to talk to you about is, when I saw the early draft, which I think, so you probably spent about a year or so on it before you took it to any publishers, had you?
Yeah. I've got the luxury of being able to play with it. There's a time is a great luxury I'm sure you would love in your life at the moment, young
Yes,
Ben.
please. Yes, please.
Uh, but it's great. So I just played with it, played with lots of ideas, played with the magazine style, tried to really get bigger images into it, really work on engaging captions to be able to intrigue students as to, wow, what's that picture of, or what's that really interesting bit of text about. So had a lot of fun trying to build the engaging work that hopefully we've produced in Good Humanities.
Yeah, the early draft that I saw, I was completely blown away with the visual style. I'm like an amateur designer myself. I love stuffing around with Photoshop and making like posters and CD covers.
Yeah.
And the draft that you produced, I'm obsessed with fonts, and some of the fonts that you used were amazing. Now, when it went to the publisher, they're like, those fonts are very lovely, but they'll be unreadable to a lot of students. Like, I think they've kept the same design philosophy as what you originally had, were not necessarily the actual designs, but definitely the design philosophy. I find looking through this book, the visuals they're just so much more prominent. Like some of the other textbooks out there are just so text dense, and especially for like a year 7 textbook, you're expecting them to read something that looks like a university textbook.
That's right. Well, it's interesting. I've done a few word counts on it, and the number of words is not all that different to the number of words that you've got in your ordinary textbooks. But the way it's organised, so that some of the information is actually in captions, in labels, in those sorts of things, which make it so much more accessible for the students. And for some students, they're really going to be skipping through, having a look at images and learning in that way. And I'm hoping that when you're at the front of the class saying, I want you to have a look at page 64, that there's kids buried up on page 94 just because they're interested.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no, you mentioned that to me the other day, and that's really stuck with me, this idea that there's a whole bunch of students who don't love reading massive amounts of text. And how do you engage those students? Is that you mentioned, imagine if the student only looked at that spread and they only looked at the captions and the things written around the outsides of the picture. Would they learn about that topic? And, looking at the visual style of the book, I think they would, which is really awesome.
Well, yeah, in planning, I work a little differently. I don't sort of sit and type up a Word manuscript. I work in InDesign to actually I sketch out what the spread should look like to begin with. Always start with trying to find a great image to work with the content, and set it up like that. So I always write the captions first, choose all of the images first, and write the introductory 2 or 3 lines that sums up pretty much what that spread is all about before I write a word of content. So, and I think in that way you get a really good basic skeleton for that little section, and hopefully it'll be even more engaging for the students.
Yeah, it really is. And I think one of the strengths of the book is that it self-differentiates a lot. And I remember, from having taught like year 7 English, and you say, there'll be 10 minutes silent reading at the start, and some people are sitting there reading the big chapter books or whatever, but a lot of the kids will be reading like sports biographies that just have heaps of pictures. And it's like, with the way that you've chosen to lay out our textbook, it captures the imaginations of those students rather than just going, oh, sorry, you're not massively into reading heaps of text, we're going to leave you out.
Well, this is right. Well, I've got my youngest son who's now a carpenter, and if he had a wall of text to engage with, he would just turn off, you would not engage and you would not be able to start the learning process because it would scare him. But he's really successful now because he's found what he's interested in and he's learning every day.
That's awesome. Yeah, so it's good that we're not being academic snobs, you know, like, oh, you can't get into this university textbook light, so stuff you. Now, look, you've been around the traps involved in textbook writing for 30 years. I'm interested to know, with not just our book, but also sort of all of the books out there at the moment, what are some of the changes that you've seen in the way that textbooks are produced now compared to what they were 30 years ago?
Well, 30 years ago, they were just starting, the biggest innovation was colour. So they were moving from black and white books to colour in educational text, which isn't it helps, I suppose, one level with engagement. But what's really happened in the last 20 to 30 years is the move towards pedagogically based learning, where it's not just a bunch of content being put down on the pages, that there is some sort of idea behind why that information is there and what you're trying to do with the students. Also, the activities, I think, have really improved over the last 10 to 15 years for sure, where it used to be the simple sort of recall, content recall, for what reason I don't know, but that is gone. It's still there a little bit, I think, in many texts, but there's much more choice, there's much more idea of trying to develop students in the activities that are in the text now. One thing that actually hasn't moved on a lot, I think, is digital. It was back in the early 2000s, it was saying, well, we're not going to be having print text and it's all going to be digital and we're going to be doing these amazing things. But really, I think digital probably is only just delivering what the print text delivers instead of using all of those wonderful possible capabilities that we could be using, such as the gaming technologies and some of the assessment technologies that are out there. I think they should be coming through more so into mainstream text these days.
Yeah, that's a really good point, actually. Yeah, there's a model, I can't remember what the acronym for it is, that talks about how IT gets used in education, and most people just stop at that first thing, which is simply replacing pen and paper with text on a screen. And I totally get your point. Yeah, most of the digital material for a lot of books out there is simply just putting what's in the book online rather than actually doing something different.
Well, I think a lot of the gamers out there are going to be learning a lot more about ancient Egypt, etc., from playing some of those fantastic interactive games where they're going through the actual worlds, having to make decisions. I think that is something that would be a fantastic blend with what we're trying to do in curriculum at the moment. But I think it's possibly cost prohibitive. You'd probably know a bit more about the gaming space.
Well, no, when you mentioned that, I was thinking of Assassin's Creed. I spent like 50 hours over the last summer holidays playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey, the ancient Greek one, the most recent, because it's amazing and like highly realistic versions of what ancient Athens would look like back in the day. But yeah, as you say, the art budget alone for Assassin's Creed Odyssey was over $100 million. So not convinced that Matilda's got that kind of money at the moment.
Not yet.
But then I was thinking about this. What's the most popular game in the world with teenagers is Minecraft, and the graphics are appalling, but it's engaging,
Absolutely, and I think that's somewhere where we can go, but we're probably not there yet. We've made baby steps so far. I think the most important ones are the pedagogical ones, and I think we make on Good Humanities on this text. And I've worked on a lot of texts for many years. in big international companies, etc. And I've never worked on one that I'm more proud of in terms of the pedagogy and the learning development that's taken forward. And that's something that you introduced us to, Ben. So thank you for that. But it is outstanding, and you would have to, and I would absolutely guarantee that students will progress really well. All students will progress using the setup that we have in Good Humanities.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, no, I mean, I worked at a research centre at Melbourne Uni that developed these principles, and I'm just the mouthpiece of the academics that I work with. I'm just really lucky to actually get an opportunity to put it out. You know, like, it's fine writing journal articles for other education academics to read, but to actually put it in the hands of people in the classroom is very, very exciting. I'm interested to know now, this is something that I asked Danielle as well. There's always quite a lot of inertia around a school's existing textbook. So, you know, a lot of resources are developed around it. You know, teachers are used to planning using a certain textbook. So I think one of the biggest challenges for any new book, you know, this is not an update to an existing book, it's a completely new book. So I guess my question is, why should teachers or heads of faculty or whoever, what's going to get them over that inertia and move to a completely new book?
Well, I think, and humanities teachers have been good, in my experience, have been more willing to change when something better comes along. And this is just something better than what is out there at the moment. What it does is it moves forward. It gives you the steps, or the students the steps they need to be able to improve and to be able to see those steps and be part of the process, instead of being said, well, here you go, this is what you're doing today. They're the ones leading their education. They're the ones leading their development. They can say, hey, if I really want to improve, I need to work hard at this particular aspect of my learning. And it's just startling, and it's refreshing, and it's easy, and it's straightforward, and it's logical. And I think teachers are always trying to do the best things for their students. And if something comes along that says, wow, my students can really move forward using this, they're going to do it, no matter if it means, you know, a little extra work additionally to have it put in. But hopefully all of the resources, etc., we've been building in around it, some, you know, fantastic online activities, etc., built in to every single spread, it'll give them a really good start to then blend in all of the good work and the things that teachers know work in the classroom with it.
Nice. Now, when did you start drafting this?
Drafting
When did you start drafting Good Humanities? Oh no, hang on, you called it something else. What was it originally called?
Oh, I can't remember what it was called. It's had about half a dozen, like, active humanities.
Something. I actually remember. I remember sitting there brainstorming with Catherine, and we'd come up with, like, I at one point got frustrated and sent her an email that literally just had 200 adjectives, and I was like, "Well, just pick one of those and put the word humanity."
Yeah, I think it was called Exploring Humanities to begin with, because I love the idea that what we were doing, we were exploring because of the engagement, and we were exploring because of their learning pedagogy behind it. But Good Humanities, I would have gone with great or superb, but we're underselling ourselves a little bit there. But it's I think it's really worthy, and I'm so proud. Now I've worked on tons of humanity texts. I mean, I worked on the original all the Jacaranda ones, the ones that you're working with, I think, in your school at the moment, Ben, were based on books that I wrote and published back in the early 2000s. The Oxford series, we did a lot of work there with the Humanities and atlases, etc. I've never been more proud of a product than this particular one. It has just blown me away. This whole learning development has just put me in a 360 degree spin, and now all I can think of is producing materials with this. In fact, I had a spare couple of weeks the other day, so I started trying to think about what a science book might look like using the learning development methodologies, and it's really exciting.
It's interesting, isn't it? Once you sort of make that mindset shift, it's in your DNA, and it's really hard to get back out of it. Yeah,
absolutely.
So I guess that is one of the pedagogical innovations of the book. Where do you see teaching going? Where do you envisage not just textbook use, but like what do you think about traditional schooling? What's it going to be like in 10, 20 years? Big question.
Well, yeah, well, yes, it's a question without notice. I would love to see it go along the learning development pedagogical lines, and working with that and developing that to be able to provide steps for students to get somewhere, to set goals. So this is where I want to be, and to do that I need to set goals to be able to get there. Setting up rubrics for students to actually see how they can get there. Thinking about conceptually how you can pull ideas together, like the concepts that you set up for history in this text, and the skills attached to them, means it doesn't really matter what content is thrown at them, that they're developing skills that are going to be really useful for them in whatever they do. In history, in your case, in the geography activities that we've done, and for learning beyond that. In fact, what it does is actually teaches students to become learners. So anything that they want to learn, anything that they want to engage with, they will then have a structure to be able to learn. And it's fantastic, and it's simple, and it's straightforward, and I love it. And I think it's so logical, and it's so easy, and it's so straightforward to do, that I can see this is something that will grow, and I love it. And that's the direction I would love to see education go in, and more so, and then start to really look at it in terms of fine grain, to really develop fantastic assessment sets where students themselves can actually test, hey, I've got to this level, I want to get to the next level, how do I do that? And test those, and as the feedback comes in from students, throw out questions and put in other questions that are going to be show the gradation of their development.
Good answer. I have got one more question I want to ask you that I didn't warn you about in advance. What was so you were the lead author for the Year 7 and the Year 8 book, yeah?
Yes.
What was your favourite part of writing those books? Which section did you enjoy the most?
I love the blank canvas. I love starting right at the very start and saying, what's this going to be? Or dreaming, what can this be? That's what I love. I love sitting down just for an individual section of the book and saying, what can this look like? And find and searching for something that's going to be engaging, like something the students know, like Chris Hemsworth as Thor might give them some sort of connection with the Vikings. So they're the sorts of things that I look for, and really interesting case studies, and and information from history, from up-to-date examples, all of those sorts of things, and then just see what happens and start to form it, rather than just go in and write in 520 BCE this occurred. Let's start it from the position of engagement, because without engagement, the student's not going to learn, or know. Anyone who wants to learn needs to be engaged first of all.
Yeah, nice. And that's another thing that stuck with me in the conversation we had the other day, you saying how if you don't have that engagement first up, then everything else is a waste of time. It's just not going to happen. And I hats off to you for the design philosophy that you've put behind the book, because I really think that it's going to, make the book so much more accessible to a much broader range of students than who normally see a textbook plonked down in front of them, just go, oh.
I hope so. I think it really moves. It's really terrific. And as I said to you earlier, I hope it's a pain in the butt to lots of teachers too, who are saying, "Come on, I want you to be looking at this," and they're fascinated by looking at a fantastic image or some interesting information somewhere else in the book.
Nice. Look, Peter, it's been an absolute pleasure having a conversation with you this afternoon. I hope that your area of the world avoids a stage 3 lockdown, but I guess we never know.
No.
Thanks so much for your time today, and I look forward to a beer at some point in the future.
Well done, Ben. Thank you very much. Lovely to see you.